Single mum woke up to find the mafia boss in her bed. What he said left her paralyzed. She woke up gripping the sheets, staring at the shirtless mafia boss sleeping inches from her, his blood still on her hands from the night before. She didn't know who he was when she saved him, but he knew exactly who she was now. And the first thing he whispered wasn't gratitude, it was a threat. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another gripping story. Morning light sliced through the cheap curtains of Rebecca Poirier's bedroom. She stirred, still half dreaming, her hand reaching across the mattress. It touched something warm. Solid. Skin. Her eyes snapped open. A man lay beside her. Shirtless. His back was a canvas of ink and violence, tattoos covering every inch, interrupted only by scars that told stories she didn't want to know. His breathing was deep, steady, the sleep of someone who'd been to hell and finally found rest. Rebecca's heart hammered against her ribs. She sat up slowly, the sheets falling away. Who the hell was this? How did he get here? Then the sunlight shifted, catching his face as he turned slightly in his sleep. That face. She knew that face. Her breath caught in her throat. The sharp cheekbones. The broken nose that had healed crooked. The tattoo creeping up his neck, Cyrillic letters she couldn't read. No. No, no, no. The man's eyes opened. Ice blue. Calm. He looked at her without surprise, as if waking up in a stranger's bed was the most natural thing in the world. His voice came out rough, accented. You shouldn't have saved me. Rebecca scrambled backward until her spine hit the headboard. What are you doing in my... He sat up slowly, wincing. His torso was wrapped in makeshift bandages. Her kitchen towels, she realized with growing horror, now stained rust brown with dried blood. Last night, he said, his eyes never leaving hers. You found me in the alley. Do you remember? She did. God help her, she did. Her name was Rebecca Poirier. 31 years old. Single mother. Worked 2 jobs. Mornings at a cafe near Old Quebec, evenings cleaning offices in Limoilou. Her daughter Jessie was 5, bright-eyed and trusting, who thought her mama could fix anything. Life wasn't easy. The rent was always late. The heating barely worked in winter. But Rebecca had taught Jessie one thing. We help people when they need it, even when we have nothing left to give. Last night, walking home from her cleaning shift, Rebecca had taken the shortcut through the alley behind Rue Saint-Vallier. The streetlights were broken again. The city never fixed anything in this neighborhood. That's when she heard it. A groan. Wet. Desperate. She should have kept walking. Every survival instinct screamed at her to run. But her feet stopped. Her hand found her phone, turned on the flashlight. A man slumped against the dumpster, one hand pressed to his side. Blood, so much blood, seeped between his fingers. His face was pale, eyes unfocused. In the distance, she heard shouting in a language she didn't recognize. Running footsteps echoing off brick walls. He looked at her. His mouth moved. Homicide. Help. Rebecca didn't think. She grabbed his arm, hauled him to his feet. He was heavy, all muscle and dead weight. She half-dragged, half-carried him the 50 meters to her building's back entrance. Up the stairs. Into her apartment. He collapsed on her bed before she could even close the door. She should have called 911. She should have called someone. But the fear in his eyes stopped her. Whatever he was running from, the hospital wouldn't save him. So she did what she could. Cleaned the wound, a knife slash across his ribs, deep but not fatal. Used the first aid kit she kept for Jessie's scraped knees. Wrapped him in towels. Covered him with her only good blanket. Then she'd taken the couch, her mind racing too fast for sleep. Now, in the morning light, the man sat in her bed looking at her with those unsettling eyes. You need to leave, Rebecca said, her voice shaking. Right now. I will. He nodded slowly. But first, you need to understand what you've done. I helped someone who was hurt. That's all. No. His expression hardened. You saved Ludwig Finberg. And now everyone who wants me dead thinks you're working with me. The name hit her like a fist. Ludwig Finberg. She'd heard that name. Where had she heard that name? From Jesse's room came a sleepy voice. Mama. Rebecca's blood turned to ice. The man, Ludwig, glanced toward the hallway, then back at her. Something shifted in his face. Not quite fear. Recognition of stakes. You have a child. It wasn't a question. Jessie appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes, her stuffed bear dangling from one hand. She saw the stranger in Mama's bed and froze. It's okay, baby, Rebecca said quickly, standing, placing herself between them. Go back to your room. Please. Jessie didn't move. Her big eyes fixed on the tattooed man. Ludwig stared at the little girl for a long moment. Then he looked back at Rebecca, and she saw something new in his expression. Something that looked almost like regret. How old? That's none of your 5, 6. Rebecca's hands clenched into fists. Get out of my house. He stood slowly, painfully, one hand pressed to his bandaged ribs. He was taller than she'd realized. Broader. Dangerous in a way that went beyond the tattoos and scars. Listen carefully, he said, his voice dropping low. Last night, I was tracked to this neighborhood by people who don't forgive. They saw you help me. They have cameras, contacts, resources you can't imagine. By now, they know your name. Your address. Your daughter's school. Rebecca's world tilted sideways. So here's what happens next. Ludwig took a step closer. She forced herself not to retreat. From this moment on, Rebecca, you're under my protection. The words hit her like a pronouncement from a judge. Final. Irrevocable. I don't want your protection. I want you gone. What you want stopped mattering the second you dragged me inside. His eyes held hers. I didn't ask you to save me. But you did. Now we both live with it. Jessie started crying softly. Rebecca's heart shattered. Ludwig moved toward the door, then paused. Turn on the news. You'll understand. He left. The apartment door closed with a soft click that sounded like a prison cell locking. Rebecca stood frozen for 3 full seconds. Then she scooped Jessie into her arms, carried her to the couch, and grabbed the remote with trembling hands. The morning news flickered to life. The anchor's face was grave. International manhunt continues for Ludwig Tarzan Finberg, former Brotva lieutenant wanted in connection with organized crime operations across Europe. Europol sources confirm Finberg may have fled to Canada. Authorities warn he is extremely dangerous and should not be approached. The screen filled with a photo. The same face that had been sleeping in her bed 5 minutes ago. Connected to multiple unsolved disappearances and suspected of. Rebecca muted the television. The silence was deafening. Jessie looked up at her, tear-streaked and confused. Mama, why was that man here? Rebecca opened her mouth. Closed it. What could she possibly say? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it, then answered. Don't hang up. Ludwig's voice. Look out your window. Don't let them see you. Rebecca's hands shook as she moved to the window, peeking through the curtain. A black SUV sat parked across the street. Tinted windows. Engine running. She hadn't noticed it before, but now it was all she could see. They've been there since dawn, Ludwig continued. They're watching to see if I'm still inside. If I leave alone, they'll come for you within the hour. They'll want to know what you know. What I told you. They won't be gentle, Rebecca. And they won't care about your daughter. Her legs went weak. She sank onto the couch. What do I do? Right now. Nothing. Act normal. Take your daughter to school. Go to work. I'm close by. I'll make sure they don't touch you. Why would you protect me? You don't even know me. A pause. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Quieter. Almost human. You're the first person in 3 years who looked at me and saw someone worth saving. Maybe I'm trying to prove you weren't wrong. The line went dead. Rebecca sat there, Jessie curled against her side, staring at the black SUV through the window. Her small apartment in Limoilou, the place where she'd built a safe life for her daughter from nothing, suddenly felt like a trap. She thought about calling the police. But what would she tell them? That she'd harbored a fugitive? That she was now caught between the Mafia and whatever Ludwig was running from? Jessie tugged her sleeve. Mama, I'm scared. Rebecca pulled her daughter close, kissed the top of her head. Me too, baby. Me too. But even as fear gripped her, another feeling stirred beneath it. Anger. She'd done the right thing. She'd helped someone who was dying. And now her entire world was collapsing because of it. Outside, the SUV sat waiting. Watching. And somewhere in the streets of Quebec City, a man with ice-blue eyes and a lifetime of violence was preparing to turn her neighborhood into a battlefield. Type, protect, if you believe helping someone in danger should never come with a price. Only the heartless won't. 3 days passed, and Rebecca learned what it meant to live in a cage made of fear. 3 days passed, and Rebecca learned what it meant to live in a cage made of fear. She went through the motions. Made Jessie breakfast. Walked her to school. Smiled at the other mothers. Worked her shift at the cafe, pouring coffee for tourists who complained about the weather. Every movement felt mechanical, rehearsed, like she was playing the role of a woman whose life hadn't already ended. The black SUV followed everywhere. Sometimes it was across from Jessie's school. Other times it idled near the cafe during her lunch break. Always watching. Always waiting. Rebecca tried to convince herself she was imagining things, but the knot in her stomach knew better. On the third night, she couldn't take it anymore. After putting Jessie to bed, she turned on her laptop and typed the name into the search bar. Ludwig Finberg. The results loaded. Her hands went numb. Europol's most wanted. Suspected in the disappearances of 12 people across 4 countries. Former Bratva enforcer linked to smuggling operations from Moscow to Rotterdam. The articles painted a picture of a man who was more weapon than human. Efficient, ruthless, impossible to catch. One photo showed him younger, maybe mid-20s, standing on a dock in Prague. His eyes were the same. Cold. Empty. Behind him, shipping containers stretched into the fog like a metal graveyard. Another article mentioned Rotterdam. A warehouse fire that killed 6 rival gang members. No evidence tying Finberg directly to the scene, but witnesses reported seeing a man matching his description leave minutes before the explosion. Rebecca's stomach turned. This was the man who'd slept in her bed. Who'd looked at Jessie with something almost like regret. She clicked on a video. Surveillance footage from a Moscow street, grainy and dark. A figure moved through the frame, tall, broad-shouldered, deliberate. He approached a parked car, leaned into the window, and 30 seconds later walked away. The car didn't move again. The news anchor's voice explained that the driver was found dead the next morning. Rebecca slammed the laptop shut. She pressed her hands against her face, trying to breathe. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Stop researching me. Ludwig's voice was flat. You won't like what you find. How do you? Are you watching me? Always. Check your email. What? Now, Rebecca. She opened her laptop again, hands shaking. A new message sat in her inbox. No subject line. She clicked it. The video file loaded. Security footage from her building's back alley, the night she'd found him. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. The angle was wide, showing the entire alley from the street entrance to her back door. Rebecca watched herself appear on screen, flashlight in hand. Watched herself kneel beside Ludwig's bleeding form. Watched herself drag him across the pavement, struggling under his weight, disappearing through her building's entrance. The video quality was sharp. Too sharp. Her face was clearly visible. So was his. Where did you get this? she whispered into the phone. I didn't. They did. Her blood ran cold. Who's they? The people I was tracking. The people who tried to kill me that night. His voice was quiet, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. This footage was uploaded to 3 different servers within an hour of you bringing me inside. By morning, every faction in the city had seen it. Rebecca's vision blurred. So they think I'm working with me. Yes. But I didn't know who you were. Doesn't matter. In their world, ignorance isn't innocence. A pause. I need to see you. Tomorrow. There's a cafe on Rue Saint-Jean, near the Port Saint-Jean. Le Petit Champlain. Be there at 2. I can't just. Yes, you can. Bring Jessie to your sisters first. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Why should I trust you? Because if I wanted to hurt you, you'd already be dead. The line clicked off. Rebecca sat in the dark, her daughter sleeping in the next room, the surveillance video frozen on her laptop screen. She looked at her own face on the monitor, the face of a woman helping a dying stranger. How had mercy become a death sentence? The next afternoon, Rebecca walked into Le Petit Champlain with her heart in her throat. The cafe was small, warm, filled with the smell of fresh bread and espresso. Ludwig sat at a corner table, wearing a black jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. He looked different. Almost normal. Almost human. She sat down across from him. You have 5 minutes. Fair enough. He slid a folder across the table. Open it. Inside were photographs. A man in his 40s, thin face, nervous eyes. Pictures of him entering a building on Rue de la Couronne, only 3 blocks from Rebecca's apartment. More photos of him at a restaurant in Old Quebec. At a bank. At a parking garage. His name is Victor Sokolov, Ludwig said quietly. 3 years ago, he betrayed the Bratva. Sold information that got 17 people killed. He's been hiding here under a false identity. Dennis Lapointe, accounting consultant. Rebecca stared at the photos. What does this have to do with me? I came to Quebec to find him. I was closing in the night you found me. But Victor's not alone. He brought insurance, a crew from the Odessa syndicate. They're the ones who tried to kill me in that alley. So leave. Go back to wherever you came from. Ludwig's jaw tightened. I've been running for 3 years, Rebecca. Running is what got me hunted in the first place. This time, I finish it. By killing him. By making sure he can't hurt anyone else. His eyes locked on hers. And right now, the person he wants to hurt most is you. Because you're the only leverage they have against me. Rebecca's hands clenched around her coffee cup. Then walk away. Let them have you. Leave us alone. If I walk away, you die. Jessie dies. They'll use you to draw me out, and when that doesn't work, they'll make an example of you anyway. He leaned forward. I know what these people do, Rebecca. I used to be one of them. The cafe suddenly felt too small. Too warm. What do you want from me? I want you to let me protect you until this is over. His voice dropped. And I want you to understand that what happens next, all of it, is my fault. Not yours. Rebecca looked at this man, this killer, this stranger, this thing she'd pulled from the darkness, and saw something she hadn't expected. Guilt. How long? She asked quietly. 1 week. Maybe 2. I'm close to finding Victor. When I do, this ends. And if it doesn't? Ludwig said nothing. The silence was answer enough. Rebecca stood. Her legs felt weak, but she forced them steady. I didn't ask for this. I know. My daughter didn't ask for this. I know. She turned to leave, then stopped. That video. The one of me helping you. Can you delete it? No. It's everywhere now. But I can make sure the people who matter know you're off limits. And if they don't care? His expression went flat, empty. The same look from the Moscow surveillance footage. Then they'll learn why I survived this long. Rebecca left without another word. Outside, the November wind cut through her coat. She walked toward the bus stop, hands shoved deep in her pockets. Somewhere in this beautiful ancient city, men with guns were watching, waiting, planning. And she'd put herself and Jesse right in their crosshairs. All because she'd done the right thing. Comment, I won't ignore danger, if you refuse to stay passive like those who ignore injustice. The black SUVs multiplied like a virus. First one. Then two. By the fourth day, Rebecca counted 3 parked within sight of her apartment building on Rue de la Couronne. Different makes, different plates, but the same tinted windows. The same idling engines. The same message. We're watching. She tried to ignore them. Tried to convince herself they were nothing. Just coincidence, just paranoia. But when she left for her morning shift at the cafe, one followed her down St. Valère Est. When she picked Jesse up from school, another waited across from the playground. They weren't even trying to hide anymore. Jesse noticed on the 5th day. Mama, why is that car always there? Rebecca's heart seized. They stood at the bus stop, Jesse's small hand in hers, her backpack covered in cartoon butterflies. The SUV sat 30 meters away, engine running, exhaust curling into the cold November air. I don't know, baby. The lie tasted like ash. Are they bad people? Rebecca knelt down, forced a smile she didn't feel. No, sweetheart. They're probably waiting for someone. Jesse looked at her with those big, trusting eyes. You always tell me not to lie. The words cut deeper than any knife. Rebecca pulled her daughter close, pressed her face into Jesse's hair, and fought back tears. That night, Ludwig called. Pack a bag. Enough for 3 days. You and Jesse are leaving tonight. Leaving. Where? Somewhere safe. I have a place near the old port in Montreal. They won't find you there. Rebecca looked around her small apartment, the home she'd built from nothing, the space where she'd raised her daughter alone. I can't just leave. I have work. Jesse has school. Rebecca. His voice cut through her excuses. Look out your window. Right now. She moved to the curtain, peeked through. 4 SUVs now. 2 on the street. 1 in the alley. 1 blocking the corner intersection. Men stood outside them, broad-shouldered, hands in pockets, breath fogging in the cold. One of them looked directly at her window. She jerked back. They're positioning, Ludwig said quietly. Testing response times. Mapping exits. This is what they do before they move. When? Her voice broke. When will they move? Soon. Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow. But they will move, Rebecca. And when they do, they won't knock. She sank onto the couch, one hand pressed to her mouth. Jesse was in her room, drawing pictures, humming a song from school. Oblivious. Safe in her child's bubble of ignorance. I can't keep running, Rebecca whispered. This is my home. My life. Then you'll die defending it. Is that what you want for Jesse? You want her to watch. The cruelty of his words stunned her into silence. I'm sorry, he continued softer now. But you need to understand what's coming. These men, they don't negotiate. They don't spare children. They use whatever leverage works. Rebecca's hands shook. Then make them stop. You're the one they want. Turn yourself in. End this. I tried running once. His voice turned cold, distant. 3 years ago, I walked away from the Bratva. Left everything behind. Changed my name, changed my face, disappeared into nothing. And you know what happened? They found me anyway. Killed everyone I'd been near. A landlord in Prague. A bartender in Amsterdam. A woman in Berlin who'd let me stay in her apartment for 2 weeks. Rebecca closed her eyes. Running is what got me hunted, Ludwig said. Because it made me look weak. Made me look like prey. This time, I finish it. I find Victor. I end this war. And then you get your life back. What if you can't finish it? What if they kill you first? A pause. Then you run. You take Jesse and you disappear. I'll make sure you have the resources to do it right. I don't want your blood money. You'll want it when men with guns are breaking down your door. Rebecca wanted to scream. Wanted to throw the phone across the room. But Jesse's humming drifted from the bedroom, and the sound grounded her. Where in Montreal? She asked finally. Old Port. Near the river docks. There's an apartment above a marine supply shop. Owner owes me a favor. He gave her the address. Pack light. I'll have someone pick you up at midnight. Back entrance. Don't bring your phone, they're tracking it. How will I contact you? You won't. Not for a few days. I need to move fast, and I can't do that if I'm worried about you. The line went dead before she could respond. Rebecca sat in the silence, the apartment suddenly feeling smaller, darker. Through the window, she could see the SUVs. Could see the men. Could feel their eyes on her walls, their patience wearing thin. She thought about her sister in Trois-Rivières. About calling the police. About grabbing Jesse and running to the bus station right now, leaving everything behind. But Ludwig's words echoed in her mind. They found me anyway. Killed everyone I'd been near. She was trapped. Not by walls or locks, but by a choice she'd made in a dark alley 5 days ago. A choice to help. A choice to care. And now that choice was a noose around her daughter's neck. Rebecca stood, moved to Jesse's room. Her daughter sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by crayons and paper. She'd drawn a picture of their apartment building. Crude, childish, but unmistakably home. Mama, look. I made us a castle. Rebecca knelt beside her, wrapped her arms around Jesse's small body. It's beautiful, baby. Can we put it on the fridge? Of course. Rebecca kissed the top of her head, breathing in the smell of strawberry shampoo and innocence. Hey, Jesse. How would you feel about an adventure? Just you and me. Jesse's eyes lit up. Like a vacation? Something like that. We'd go to Montreal for a few days. See the big ships on the river. Can we get poutine? Despite everything, Rebecca smiled. Yeah, sweetheart. We can get poutine. Jesse hugged her tight. I love adventures with you, Mama. Rebecca held her daughter and stared at the crude drawing of their building. Their castle, their fortress, their home that had become a prison. Outside, the SUVs waited. Inside, a mother packed a bag and tried to figure out how to explain to a 5-year-old that sometimes monsters are real. And somewhere in the streets of Limoilou, Ludwig Finberg prepared for war. Hit like if you think no one should exploit the weak, only manipulators won't. The marine supply shop sat wedged between a seafood restaurant and an abandoned warehouse on Rue de la Commune in Montreal's Old Port. At night, with the St. Lawrence River churning black beyond the docks, it looked like the kind of place where bodies disappeared quietly. Rebecca held Jesse's hand tighter as they climbed the exterior stairs to the apartment above. Inside, the space was sparse but clean. One bedroom, a kitchenette, a window overlooking the water. The kind of place designed for people who needed to vanish. Mama, it smells like fish, Jesse whispered. I know, baby. It's just for a few days. But as Rebecca locked the door behind them, she wondered if that was true. Ludwig had promised this would end soon. Ludwig had promised a lot of things. She pulled out the burner phone he'd left for her. One number programmed in. She hesitated, then called her sister instead. On the apartment's landline, its existence a small mercy. Sylvie. It's me. Rebecca. What's wrong? You sound. I need you to do something for me. Don't ask questions. If anyone comes asking about me or Jesse, you haven't heard from us. Tell them we went to visit Mom in Saguenay. Silence. Then, what kind of trouble are you in? The kind that gets worse if I explain. Rebecca's voice cracked. Please, Sylvie. Just trust me. Does this have anything to do with that man they're looking for? The one from the news. Rebecca closed her eyes. Of course her sister had connected the dots. Sylvie had always been the smart one. I helped someone. I didn't know who he was. Now people think I'm involved. Jesus. Rebecca. You need to go to the police. I can't. Not yet. She glanced at Jessie, who was exploring the small bedroom. Just, if anything happens to me, promise you'll take care of Jessie. Nothing's going to happen to you. Don't talk like that. Promise me, Sylvie. Her sister's voice broke. I promise. But you call me every day. Every single day. Or I'm coming to find you myself. After hanging up, Rebecca sank onto the worn couch and tried not to think about everything she was asking her sister to accept on faith. The burner phone rang at dawn. How's the apartment? Ludwig's voice sounded tired, strained. Smells like dead fish. Jessie's scared. I'm scared. Rebecca rubbed her eyes. How much longer? I'm close. Victor's been using a storage facility near the Montreal docks. I'm watching it now. He'll show eventually. And then what? You kill him and this all goes away. It's more complicated than that. A pause. Victor didn't work alone. He had partners in the Odessa syndicate, Alexei Morozov and his brother Dmitry. They're the ones who want me dead. Who want you dead. Victor's just the key to finding them. Rebecca's stomach turned. How many people are trying to kill us? Enough. His voice hardened. But I've survived worse odds. And I've got someone helping us now. Who? Detective named Marc Benoit. Works organized crime out of the Quebec City station. He's been tracking the Odessa crew for months. Doesn't care about me. Wants the bigger fish. You're working with the police? Unofficially. Benoit knows if he arrests me now, the Odessa syndicate disappears. Better to let me draw them out. Rebecca wanted to laugh at the insanity of it. A mafia enforcer and a detective, playing chess with her life as the stakes. How do you know you can trust him? I don't. But right now, he's the only ally we have. The line went dead. 3 days passed in the fisherman's apartment. 3 days of watching ships glide past the window, of Jessie asking when they could go home, of Rebecca jumping at every footstep on the stairs outside. On the 4th morning, she risked a trip to a cafe 2 blocks away, a small place called Le Marin Bleu where dock workers gathered before shifts. She needed coffee. Needed to feel human again. The owner, a weathered man in his 60s with kind eyes, served her at the counter. You're new around here, he said in accented French. Just visiting. He studied her face, then glanced out the window. Rebecca followed his gaze and saw them. 2 men in dark coats standing across the street. Watching. The owner leaned closer. Those men. They've been asking about a woman with a little girl. Blonde hair. Quebec City accent. He met her eyes. That you? Rebecca's blood froze. I don't know what you're talking about. Listen. His voice dropped. I don't know what you're mixed up in, and I don't want to know. But those men? They're bad news. I've seen their type before. They don't leave witnesses. Why are you telling me this? He set down a coffee cup, slid it toward her. Because 30 years ago, someone helped me when I was running from people just like them. Gave me a place to hide until it was safe to surface. He smiled sadly. Maybe it's your turn to be helped. Rebecca's throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just be careful. And tell that man you're with, the dangerous one, there's a back exit through the kitchen if you ever need it. She stared at him. How do you know? I know the look of a woman protecting a child from violence. And I know the look of a man who's seen too much of it. He turned back to his espresso machine. The world's full of monsters, madam. But sometimes the monsters are the only ones who can fight other monsters. Back at the apartment, Rebecca couldn't shake the cafe owner's words. She thought about Ludwig, the surveillance footage of him walking away from dead men, the articles about disappearances and violence. But she also thought about the way he'd looked at Jesse. The regret in his voice when he said, "You shouldn't have saved me." That night, the burner phone rang again. "I need you to know something," Ludwig said without preamble. "About who I was. What I did. I already know. I read the articles. Articles don't tell you everything." He paused. "In Moscow, I worked for a man named Konstantin. He ran girls, trafficking, prostitution. I was supposed to enforce collections, keep them in line. But I didn't. I helped 3 of them escape instead. Gave them money, papers, a way out." Rebecca said nothing. "Konstantin found out. That's why I ran. That's why they've been hunting me for 3 years. Not because I stole from the Bratva. Because I chose wrong people over the right ones." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to understand. I'm not a good man, Rebecca. I've done things that would make you sick. But I've also tried to be better than what they made me." His voice softened. "You reminded me it's possible. That's why I won't let them touch you or Jesse. Not for my sins." The line went quiet. Rebecca heard traffic in the background, the distant sound of a ship's horn on the river. "Ludwig. Yeah. That cafe owner today. He called you a monster fighting monsters." A long silence. Then, almost sadly, "He's not wrong." After he hung up, Rebecca stood at the window watching the lights of Montreal shimmer across the black water. Somewhere out there, Detective Benoit was closing in on criminals. Ludwig was hunting a traitor. And she was trapped between all of them, a single mother who'd made one compassionate choice and couldn't escape its consequences. But maybe, she thought, maybe that's what the world needed. People who made compassionate choices even when it cost them everything. Jesse called from the bedroom. "Mama, can you read me a story?" Rebecca turned from the window, from the darkness and the danger, and went to her daughter. Tomorrow could bring war. Tonight, she'd read about princesses and dragons. Comment, "I stand for loyalty, if you won't side with traitors like Ludwig's enemies." Ludwig arrived at the apartment on the 7th night, moving like a shadow through the door. His face was harder than Rebecca remembered, his jacket spotted with something dark near the collar. Blood. Fresh. "Is that not mine?" He moved to the sink, washed his hands methodically. Victor made contact. "I'm close." Jesse was asleep in the bedroom. Rebecca kept her voice low, controlled. "What happened? What always happens?" He dried his hands, turned to face her. Men who forgot the cost of betrayal got reminded. The casual way he said it chilled her. This was the Ludwig from the surveillance footage. The enforcer. The weapon. He must have seen something in her expression because his jaw tightened. "You want to know who I really am? What I did before you found me bleeding in that alley? I already know enough." "No. You know the headlines. You don't know the story." He pulled out a chair, sat down heavily. Rotterdam, 2019. The Bratva ran shipping containers through the docks. Weapons, mostly. Sometimes drugs. I was security. Made sure cargo moved quietly. Rebecca stayed standing, arms crossed. One night, a container came in that wasn't on the manifest. We opened it, found 32 people inside. Women, children. Half of them already dead from suffocation. His voice went flat, empty. That's when I learned what we were really moving. Not just guns. People. And you kept working for them? For 3 more months. Because that's how long it took me to build an exit strategy. He looked up at her. The night I left, I burned 4 containers on that dock. Cargo worth millions. It sent a message. One the Bratva couldn't ignore. What kind of message? That I'd rather die than be part of that machine. He leaned back. Viktor Sokolov was my lieutenant then. My friend. We planned the burn together. Except Viktor had a different plan. He took photos, evidence, everything. Sold it to the Odessa syndicate for protection and a new identity in Canada. Rebecca processed this. So this isn't about revenge. It's about survival. It's about both. His eyes held hers. Viktor knows I'll never stop hunting him. So he's hunting you instead. Children are always the easiest leverage. The word children hung in the air like a threat. The next morning, Rebecca made a mistake. She took Jessie to Parc de la Commune, a small playground near the old port. Just for an hour. Just to let her daughter feel normal again. Jessie ran to the swings, her laughter cutting through the November cold. Rebecca watched from a bench, coffee in hand, trying to pretend they were just another mother and daughter enjoying the morning. She didn't notice the van until it was too late. It pulled up slowly, dark blue, side door already sliding open. Two men stepped out, faces hard, movements precise. One started toward the swings. Toward Jessie. Rebecca's coffee hit the ground. She ran. Jessie, come here. Now. Her daughter looked up, confused. The man was already at the swing set, reaching for her. Rebecca screamed, her voice tearing through the park. Other parents turned. Someone shouted. The man's hand closed around Jessie's arm. A figure slammed into him from the side. Ludwig. Moving like violence incarnate. He drove the man into the ground, fist connecting with jaw once, twice. The second man pulled something from his jacket, a knife, Rebecca saw with horror, but Ludwig was faster. He caught the man's wrist, twisted. Bones snapped. The knife clattered to pavement. Run! Ludwig shouted at her. Rebecca grabbed Jessie, her daughter was crying now, terrified, and ran. Behind them, she heard the van's engine roar to life. Heard Ludwig's footsteps pounding after them. They made it to Rue de la Commune before Ludwig caught up, pushing them into a narrow alley between two warehouses. The van screeched past, hunting. Stay down, he ordered, breathing hard. Blood dripped from his knuckles. Jessie sobbed into Rebecca's chest. Mama, who were those men? Sure. Baby. It's okay. We're safe now. But they weren't safe. Rebecca knew it. Ludwig knew it. The van would circle back. More would come. Ludwig pulled out his phone, dialed. Benoit. They just tried to take the girl. Parc de la Commune. No, I'm handling it. Fine. 10 minutes. He hung up, looked at Rebecca. Detectives coming. He'll take you to a safe house. Where are you going? To finish this. His eyes were cold, final. Victor's at the docks. I have his location. This ends tonight. You can't just. Yes, I can. He crouched down to Jessie's level, his voice softening in a way that broke Rebecca's heart. Hey, little one. You're very brave. Your mama's very brave. And I promise, he glanced up at Rebecca, no one's going to hurt you again. Jessie sniffled. Are you a good guy? Ludwig's expression cracked. Just for a second. I'm trying to be. Sirens wailed in the distance. Ludwig stood, started to leave, then paused. Rebecca. What I said that first morning. You shouldn't have saved me. I meant it. But I'm glad you did. It reminded me there's still something worth protecting in this world. Then he was gone, disappearing into the maze of old port alleys. Detective Benoit arrived minutes later, a lean man in his 40s with tired eyes and a badge that looked like it carried too much weight. He took one look at Rebecca's face, at Jessie's tears, and his jaw tightened. You're the woman who saved Finberg. I didn't know who he was. Doesn't matter now. You're in it. He opened his car door. Get in. We have a safe house in Verdun. You'll stay there until this is over. What about Ludwig? Benoit's expression was unreadable. If he does what I think he's going to do, this will be over by morning. One way or another. Rebecca climbed into the back seat with Jessie, her daughter finally quiet, exhausted from fear. Through the window, she could see the Montreal docks, shipping containers stacked like steel mountains, cranes silhouetted against the gray sky. Somewhere in that industrial labyrinth, Ludwig was hunting the man who'd betrayed him. The man who'd tried to take her daughter. And Rebecca realized, with a strange clarity, that she wanted him to succeed. Not because she believed in revenge. Not because she thought violence solved anything. But because Jessie had almost been taken from her today. Because monsters like Viktor Sokolov used children as weapons. And sometimes, she thought, you needed a different kind of monster to stop them. As Benoit drove away from the old port, Rebecca looked back one last time. The docks sprawled behind them, cold, industrial, waiting for blood. Mama. Jessie's small voice broke the silence. Is the scary man going to be okay? Rebecca held her daughter close. I don't know, baby. I hope so. But hope, she'd learned, wasn't enough when the world was this broken. Hit subscribe if you believe children should never be used as pawns. Only heartless people won't. The safe house in Verdun lasted 2 days before Ludwig came back. He arrived after midnight, moving through the door like he'd done this 1,000 times. His face was cut, bruised. His knuckles were raw. But he was alive. Rebecca stood from the couch where she'd been waiting, unable to sleep. Did you find him? Found him. Lost him. Ludwig moved to the kitchen, ran water over his hands. Viktor's smarter than I gave him credit for. He knew I was coming. Had Morozov's men waiting. How many? Enough. He dried his hands, winced. But I got close enough to see his face. Close enough to let him know I'm not stopping. Rebecca watched him move through the small kitchen, checking the windows, testing the locks, his body a coiled spring of violence and vigilance. This was a man who'd lived hunted for so long he'd forgotten what safety felt like. Benoit called, she said quietly. He wants us to stay here another week. Maybe longer. Ludwig's jaw tightened. No. Excuse me. You're not staying here. Viktor knows about this place by now. Benoit thinks his jurisdiction makes you untouchable, but he's wrong. Ludwig turned to face her. You're coming with me. Tonight. Where? Back to Quebec City. Your apartment. Rebecca's heart dropped. That's insane. They know where I live. They've been watching for over a week. Exactly. They're expecting you to hide. To run. That's why we go back. His eyes locked on hers. Viktor wants you isolated. Scared. Easy to grab. But if we're at your apartment, I control the environment. I know every exit, every angle, every way they'll try to come in. You're using us as bait. I'm using geography as advantage. He stepped closer. Rebecca, I've been running for 3 years. Every time I hide, they get closer. Every time I retreat, they hunt someone else. This ends when I stop running and start fighting on ground I choose. And if you're wrong? If they overwhelm you? His expression softened just slightly. Then Benoit has backup waiting. And you have an escape route I'll show you. But they won't overwhelm me. Not this time. Rebecca looked toward the bedroom where Jessie slept, oblivious to the war being waged around her. She's 5 years old, Ludwig. She shouldn't have to see this. I know. His voice dropped. And I'm sorry. But the world she lives in doesn't care about what children should or shouldn't see. It only cares about what people like me are willing to do to protect them. 3 hours later, they were back in Rebecca's apartment in Limoilou. It felt wrong. Violated. Like returning to a crime scene. Rebecca moved through the rooms, checking if anything had been disturbed. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt safe anymore. Ludwig stood in her kitchen, the same kitchen where she'd made breakfast for Jessie 100 times, and laid out weapons on the counter. 2 handguns, a knife, ammunition. He checked each piece methodically, efficiently. Jessie watched from the doorway, half asleep, clutching her stuffed bear. Why does he have guns, Mama? Rebecca knelt beside her daughter. Because he's keeping us safe, baby. From the bad men? Yes. Is he a bad man too? The question hung in the air. Rebecca looked at Ludwig, who'd stopped moving, listening. His scarred hands rested on the counter beside weapons designed to end lives. No, Rebecca said finally. He's just a man who's had to do bad things to survive. Ludwig's expression flickered, something between gratitude and grief. Come on, Jessie. Back to bed. Everything's going to be okay. But as Rebecca tucked her daughter in, she wondered if that was true. If anything would ever be okay again. Back in the kitchen, Ludwig had finished. The guns were loaded, positioned strategically around the apartment. 1 in the bedroom. 1 near the door. 1 in the kitchen within arm's reach. You know how to use one of these? He asked. No. You're going to learn. Tonight. He picked up the smaller handgun, showed her the safety, the grip, the trigger. If someone comes through that door who isn't me or Benoit, you point this at center mass and you pull until it stops clicking. Rebecca's hands shook as she held the weapon. I can't. Yes, you can. Because if I go down, you're the last line between Jessie and them. The weight of it, metal and responsibility, made her sick. Put it under the couch cushion, Ludwig instructed. Easy to reach. Hard to see. She did as he said, then stood there feeling like a stranger in her own home. Why are you doing this? She asked. Really? You don't owe me anything. Ludwig was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw, honest. In Rotterdam, after I burned those containers, I ran. Left people behind. People who'd helped me, who'd trusted me. The Bratva found them first. Made examples. Made me watch from a distance knowing I couldn't save them. He turned to face her. You saved me without knowing who I was. Without asking what I'd done. And you did it because you saw someone who needed help. That kind of compassion, his voice caught. I haven't seen that in years. Maybe never. So no, I don't owe you. But I owe the version of myself that died in that alley the night you found me. The version that remembered what it felt like to be human. Rebecca's throat tightened. I'm still angry at you. For dragging us into this. You should be. But I understand why you can't run. Why you have to finish it. He nodded slowly. Then you understand more than most. The night stretched on. Ludwig kept watch from the window, barely moving. Rebecca tried to sleep on the couch but couldn't. Around 3 a.m., she heard him speak quietly into his phone. Benoit. They're moving. Yeah, I see them. No, stay back. Let them commit. I'll handle it. Rebecca sat up. They're here. 2 blocks away. 3 vehicles. They'll be in position within 10 minutes. He checked his weapon, his movements calm, practiced. Take Jessie into the bathroom. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you. Ludwig. Now, Rebecca. She ran to Jessie's room, scooped up her sleeping daughter, carried her to the bathroom. Jessie woke up confused, crying. Rebecca held her close, turned on the sink to drown out the sounds about to come. Through the door, she heard footsteps. Voices in the hallway outside the apartment. Low, controlled. Professional. Then Ludwig's voice, ice cold. You want to come in? Doors open. A pause. Then violence. Gunshots shattered the quiet. Rapid, deafening. Jessie screamed. Rebecca covered her daughter's ears, pressed her face into her chest, whispered promises she didn't know if she could keep. More shots. Breaking glass. Something heavy hitting the floor. Then silence. Rebecca's heart hammered so hard she thought it would break through her ribs. Rebecca. Ludwig's voice. It's over. Stay there. Are you hurt? No. 5 minutes later. Sirens. Benoit's voice in the apartment, sharp and angry. Jesus Christ. Finberg. You said contain, not execute. They came armed. I responded. One of them is still alive. Barely. Rebecca heard movement. Heard a man groaning in pain. Heard Ludwig say quietly, "Where's Victor?" "Go to hell." A wet, choked sound. "I'll ask again." Ludwig, stop. Benoit's voice, commanding. "He's done. Let the paramedics take him." A long pause. Then Ludwig. "He comes back, I finish it." "He's not coming back. You put 3 bullets in him." Rebecca sat in the bathroom, Jessie trembling in her arms, and realized something that terrified her. She wasn't horrified by what Ludwig had done. She was relieved. These men had tried to take her daughter, had terrorized them for weeks, and Ludwig had stopped them. But where did that leave her? What did it mean when violence felt like justice? An hour later, the apartment was empty except for bloodstains and police tape. Benoit had taken the survivors. The dead had been removed. And Rebecca stood in her kitchen where Ludwig had laid out those weapons, trying to reconcile the woman she'd been 2 weeks ago with who she was becoming. Ludwig found her there. "We can't stay here. Not anymore." "I know." Benoit's arranging a hotel. Different borough. Better security. Rebecca nodded, numb. "You're angry." "I'm confused." She looked at him. "You almost killed that man. In my home. With my daughter 10 feet away." "I know. And I'm not sure if I'm more upset that you did it, or that I'm glad you did." Ludwig's expression was unreadable. "Welcome to the world I've lived in for 3 years. Where the lines between right and wrong don't exist. Only survival." Rebecca thought about Jessie. About the men who'd tried to take her. About the gun still hidden under her couch cushion. "I don't want to live in that world." "Then we end this. Fast. Before it changes you more than it already has." Comment. I refuse to exploit others if you won't follow the path of selfish manipulators. The hotel room in Rosemont smelled like disinfectant and old carpet. Jessie slept in the bed closest to the window, finally exhausted from fear. Rebecca sat at the small table, hands wrapped around cold coffee, watching Ludwig work. He'd spread papers across the second bed, surveillance photos, maps, printed messages. His laptop glowed in the dark, showing grainy security footage from cameras around Quebec City. "There," he said, freezing a frame. "That's Victor. 3 days ago. Corner of Rue de la Couronne and 3E Avenue." Rebecca leaned closer. The image showed a thin man in a winter coat, face partially obscured by a scarf. "That's blocks from my apartment." "I know." Ludwig pulled up another photo, this one clearer, taken from a different angle. Victor entering a building. The address was visible on the door. 847 Rue de la Couronne. Rebecca's blood went cold. That's Mrs. Dubois's building. She runs the corner store. I shop there twice a week." Ludwig looked at her, his expression unreadable. "When did you start shopping there?" 6 months ago. Maybe 7. I moved to that neighborhood last spring." Her mind raced. Why? Victor's been in Quebec City for 8 months. Using the alias Dennis Lapointe. He pulled up more documents, lease agreements, utility bills, all in that false name. He rented an apartment in that building the same month you moved to Rue de la Couronne. The implication hit her like a fist. "You think he knew I was there? That he chose?" "I don't think anything yet. But it's a hell of a coincidence." Ludwig scrolled through more files. Victor's smart. Paranoid. He wouldn't live anywhere without escape routes, without monitoring his surroundings. If he was watching that street, he would have seen you. Rebecca's hands started shaking. "But why? I was nobody. Just a single mother trying to survive." That's exactly why. Ludwig turned the laptop toward her. Look at these. Phone records. Messages between unknown numbers. Translated from Russian. Rebecca scanned them, her stomach sinking with each line. Woman on third floor. Quebec plates. Drives a 2012 Civic. Works 2 jobs. Single mother. Soft target. Compassionate type. Could be useful. Monitor but don't engage. We may need leverage when Finberg comes. Rebecca pushed the laptop away, stood up, moved to the window. Her reflection stared back, blonde hair tangled, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. The woman in that reflection looked nothing like the person she'd been 2 weeks ago. They were watching me before that night, she said quietly. Before I found you. Yes. And you knew. You knew when you let me bring you inside. Ludwig was silent for a beat too long. I suspected. Rebecca spun around. You suspected? You suspected I was being surveilled by your enemies and you still let me drag you into my home? With my daughter sleeping in the next room. I didn't have a choice. I was bleeding out. And yes, I suspected Victor might be watching that building, but I didn't know. Not for certain. And now you're certain. He nodded slowly. The security footage Rebecca dragged me in was uploaded too quickly. Too efficiently. Victor had cameras positioned specifically to monitor that alley. He saw you help me. He made sure others saw it too. Rebecca's voice broke. So I was never random. I was always part of this. He wanted me to save you. So he could use you as bait. So he could draw me out while keeping his hands clean. Ludwig closed the laptop. Victor's not a fighter, Rebecca. He's a planner. A manipulator. He knew I'd protect you once you were involved. Knew it would slow me down, make me vulnerable. She sank back into the chair, her mind reeling. Every choice she'd made, every decision she thought was hers, had been orchestrated. Manipulated. She'd been a puppet dancing on strings she couldn't see. How long have you known this? I started suspecting after the cafe meeting. Confirmed it tonight. He met her eyes. I should have told you sooner. But I needed to be sure. You used me too. Just like Victor. Yes. At least he didn't lie. At least he gave her that. Rebecca looked at Jessie, sleeping peacefully, unaware that her mother's entire world was built on lies and manipulation. What else haven't you told me? Ludwig hesitated. That hesitation told her everything. What? Benoit. He's been in contact with someone close to you. Who? Your sister. Sylvie. The room tilted. What are you talking about? Ludwig pulled up another document. Call logs from Benoit's phone. Multiple calls to Sylvie's number over the past week. Short conversations. Regular timing. He's been keeping her updated. Telling her where you are. What's happening? Ludwig's voice was careful, measured. I think he's using her as a secondary contact. In case something happens to me. That's good, isn't it? She's my sister. She should know. Rebecca. Ludwig pulled up one more file. A recording. Listen. Sylvie's voice filled the room, tinny through the laptop speakers. So they're at the hotel in Rosemont? Yes, I understand. I'll make sure to. What? No, I haven't told anyone else. Just like you asked. Then another voice. Male. Accented. Not Benoit. Good. Keep it that way. We'll handle it from here. Rebecca's heart stopped. Who is that? Alexei Morozov. Victor's partner in the Odessa syndicate. Ludwig paused the recording. Your sister's been feeding information to them. Probably thinks she's talking to Benoit. No, Sylvie wouldn't. She's my sister, she'd never. She doesn't know. They're spoofing Benoit's number. Making her think she's helping keep you safe when she's actually telling them exactly where to find you. Rebecca couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Her sister, her only family besides Jessie, had been weaponized against her without even knowing it. When was this call? 2 hours ago. So they know we're here. Right now. Yes. Rebecca looked at Jessie, still sleeping. Looked at the door. The window. The walls that suddenly felt paper thin. We need to leave. Now. No. Ludwig stood, moved to the window, checked the street below. They're already in position. 3 vehicles. Maybe 10 men. We leave now, they'll take us in the open. So what do we do? He turned to face her, and she saw it, the same cold calculation from the surveillance footage. The enforcer. The weapon. We call Benoit. The real Benoit. And we use Sylvie to feed them false information. I won't let you use my sister. She's already being used, Rebecca. The question is whether we control the narrative or they do. His voice softened slightly. I can keep her safe. But only if you trust me. Trust. The word felt like a joke. Victor had manipulated her. Ludwig had withheld information. Benoit had exposed her sister to danger. And Sylvie, innocent, trusting Sylvie, had become a pawn without knowing it. Who was left to trust? Rebecca looked at her daughter. At the little girl who still believed her mama could protect her from anything. What do you need me to do? Ludwig pulled out his phone. Call your sister. Tell her you're scared. Tell her you're thinking about running, taking Jessie and disappearing. And then we see who shows up to stop you. Rebecca dialed Sylvie's number with shaking hands. It rang twice before her sister answered. Rebecca, are you okay? The detective said. Sylvie, I can't do this anymore. I'm taking Jessie and running. Tonight. What? No, you need to stay where you are. It's safe there. Nothing's safe. They found us again. They're always going to find us. Rebecca forced her voice to break. I'm going to the bus station. We're leaving Quebec. Maybe leaving Canada. Rebecca, wait, don't. Let me call the detective, he can help. No police. No help. Just me and Jessie. She gave the address of a bus station across the city. I'm leaving in an hour. She hung up before Sylvie could respond. Ludwig was already moving, checking his weapons, preparing. Benoit's on his way. We have maybe 30 minutes before Morozov's men reposition. And Victor. If this works, Victor will show up to watch me die. Ludwig looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something like respect in his eyes. You're stronger than I thought, Rebecca. I'm not strong. I'm desperate. In my world, they're the same thing. Outside, the night waited. And somewhere in Quebec City, Victor Sokolov was making his final move, not knowing that the bait had teeth. Hit like if you believe truth should come before personal gain, only hypocrites won't. The Gare du Palais bus station sat quiet at 11 p.m., its Art Deco facade illuminated by streetlights that barely pushed back the November darkness. Inside, a handful of travelers waited for late connections, oblivious to the war about to erupt outside. Ludwig positioned Rebecca and Jessie in a cafe across Rue Abraham Martin, 2nd floor, clear view of the station entrance. Benoit was somewhere in the shadows with 4 officers in plain clothes. The trap was set. They'll come from 3 directions, Ludwig said, checking his weapon one last time. Morozov's men from the east, blocking escape routes. Victor will watch from distance, probably that parking structure across Boulevard Jean Lesage. Rebecca held Jessie close, the little girl finally asleep against her shoulder. And you? I'll be at the station entrance. Visible. Waiting. He looked at her. When it starts, get down. Don't move until Benoit gives the all clear. What if you? I won't. But his eyes told a different story. He knew the odds. Ludwig started to leave, then paused. Rebecca. What you said in the hotel, about me using you. You were right. But it stopped being strategy somewhere along the way. Stopped being about Victor and became about keeping you and Jesse alive. I need you to know that. Before she could respond, he was gone. Rebecca watched him cross the street, a lone figure moving toward the station. He looked smaller somehow. More human. More breakable. Her phone buzzed. Benoit, eyes on 3 vehicles approaching. East Side. Get ready. Through the cafe window, Rebecca saw them arrive. Black SUVs, moving slowly, deliberately. They parked in formation, blocking intersections. Men emerged, 6, 7, 8. All armed. All professional. Then she saw him. Viktor Sokolov. Stepping out of a sedan near the parking structure. Exactly where Ludwig predicted. Thin face. Nervous energy. Even from this distance, Rebecca could see he wasn't built for violence. He was built for betrayal. Ludwig stood alone under the station's entrance lights. Waiting. One of Morozov's men approached first, weapon visible beneath his coat. Finberg. You're alone. Not quite. Ludwig's voice carried across the empty plaza. Benoit. Show them. 4 unmarked cars roared to life, lights flashing red and blue. Officers emerged, weapons drawn. The Mafia soldiers froze, caught between flight and fight. But Victor had planned for this. The explosion came from Rebecca's left, a parked car near Rue de la Guerre detonating in a ball of fire and metal. The shockwave shattered the cafe window. Rebecca threw herself over Jesse, glass raining down around them. Screaming. Gunfire. Chaos. Through the broken window, Rebecca saw Benoit's officers scattering, taking cover. Saw Morozov's men advancing under the confusion. Saw Ludwig moving, not retreating, but charging forward. He moved like violence incarnate. The first man didn't see him coming. Ludwig's fist connected with his jaw, spinning him into the pavement. The second raised his weapon. Ludwig grabbed his wrist, twisted. The gun discharged skyward. A knee to the ribs. The man dropped. But there were too many. 3 more converged on him. Ludwig took 2 shots, one to the shoulder, one grazing his side. He stumbled but didn't fall. Grabbed one attacker, used him as a shield. Bullets tore through the man instead. Rebecca couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Jesse was crying, terrified, and all Rebecca could do was hold her and watch Ludwig die by inches. Benoit's voice crackled over police radios. All units, suspects are armed and... Another explosion. Smaller. A flashbang. Smoke filled the plaza. When it cleared, Victor was moving. Not toward Ludwig. Toward the cafe. Toward Rebecca. No. Rebecca grabbed Jesse, ran toward the back exit. But the door was locked. She spun, searching for another way out. The stairs. Victor appeared at the top, blocking her path. His face was calm. Almost sad. I'm sorry, Rebecca. But you understand. This is business. Stay away from us. Her voice shook. I can't. You're the only thing that will make him stop. Victor pulled out a gun. Small, almost delicate in his thin fingers. Come with me quietly, and the girl doesn't have to see what happens next. Below, gunfire continued. Ludwig's voice roaring in pain or rage. Rebecca couldn't tell which. She thought about the weapon Ludwig had shown her. The one she'd sworn she'd never use. It was in her coat pocket right now. Her hand moved toward it. Victor saw. Don't. You'd shoot a mother holding her child? I'd shoot anyone who threatens my survival. His gun stayed level. That's what Finberg never understood. Loyalty is a luxury. Survival is all that matters. Rebecca's fingers closed around her weapon. She'd never fired a gun in her life. Didn't know if she could. But Jesse's weight against her chest, her daughter's terrified whimpering, it made everything simple. You're wrong, Rebecca said quietly. Ludwig understands survival better than you. Because he knows what's worth surviving for. She pulled the trigger. The recoil shocked her. The bullet went wide, shattering a window behind Victor. But it was enough. He flinched, ducked, and Ludwig came through the smoke like vengeance itself. He hit Victor from behind, driving him into the floor. The gun skittered away. Victor tried to crawl to escape, but Ludwig's hand closed around his throat. 3 years, Ludwig growled. 3 years I've hunted you. Victor choked, gasped. Ludwig, please, I had no choice. Everyone has a choice. Ludwig's fist pulled back. You chose wrong. Ludwig, don't. Rebecca's voice cut through the violence. He's not worth it. He's not worth becoming that again. Ludwig froze, fist suspended. His face was a mask of blood and rage. For a long moment, Rebecca thought he'd do it anyway. Thought he'd cross that final line. Then he released Victor, let him collapse gasping to the floor. You're right. He's not. Benoit appeared at the stairs, weapon drawn, officers behind him. Finberg, step back. Ludwig stood slowly, hands raised, blood dripping from multiple wounds. He's yours, detective. Officers moved in, cuffing Victor. More arrested Morozov's men below. The plaza was a war zone, burning cars, shattered glass, bodies on the pavement. But it was over. Rebecca sank to the floor, Jessie clutched against her, the gun still in her trembling hand. Ludwig knelt beside her, his face pale from blood loss. You okay? She laughed, a broken, hysterical sound. I just shot at someone. In front of my daughter. Am I okay? No. No, I'm not okay. You missed. That doesn't make it better. It makes you human. He gently took the gun from her hand. Thank you. For stopping me. Thank you for stopping him. They sat there in the wreckage, 2 people who'd survived something they never should have faced. Below, Benoit was shouting orders. Ambulances screamed closer. The world was slowly stitching itself back together. Jessie lifted her head, looked at Ludwig. You're bleeding. I know, little one. Mama can fix it. She fixes everything. Ludwig met Rebecca's eyes. I believe she can. The paramedics arrived minutes later. They tried to separate Ludwig from Rebecca and Jessie, but Jessie wouldn't let go of his hand. Even covered in blood, even scarred and dangerous, to her he was the man who'd protected her mama. As they loaded Ludwig into the ambulance, Benoit approached Rebecca. We'll need your statement. Tomorrow. After you've rested. Is it really over? Victor's in custody. Morozov's men are either arrested or dead. The Odessa Syndicate's network in Canada is finished. He paused. You're safe now, Ms. Poirier. You and your daughter. Safe. The word felt foreign. Like a language she'd forgotten how to speak. Rebecca carried Jessie down the stairs, past the police tape and emergency lights. At the bottom, her phone buzzed. Sylvie, calling frantically. Rebecca answered. I'm okay. We're okay. I'll explain everything tomorrow. Rebecca, I'm so sorry, I thought I was helping. I know. It's not your fault. She looked back at the chaos, the price of survival, the cost of compassion. None of this was your fault. She ended the call and walked toward the waiting police car that would take them somewhere safe. Somewhere clean. Somewhere far from blood and betrayal. Behind her, the Gare du Palais burned. Ahead, an uncertain future waited. But for the first time in 2 weeks, Rebecca wasn't running. Comment, I stand for courage, if you won't hide while innocent people are in danger. 3 weeks later, Rebecca stood in the kitchen of her apartment on Rue de la Couronne, making breakfast like she'd done 1,000 times before. Eggs. Toast. Orange juice for Jessie. The routine felt both familiar and alien, like wearing clothes that no longer fit quite right. The bullet holes had been patched. The bloodstains scrubbed away. The landlord had even replaced the shattered window. But some scars ran deeper than plaster and paint. Jessie sat at the table, drawing. She'd stopped having nightmares 2 days ago. Started smiling again. Children were resilient in ways adults could never manage. Mama, can we go to the chateau today? Rebecca turned, spatula in hand. The Chateau Frontenac. You promised. Before everything. Jessie's voice was careful, testing whether the old promises still held weight. Yeah, baby. We can go. Rebecca set the eggs on plates, carried them to the table. We can do whatever you want today. Because they could. Because Viktor Sokolov was in a federal detention center awaiting extradition to Europe. Because Alexei Morozov was dead, killed in the shootout at Gare du Palais. Because Dmitry Morozov had fled back to Ukraine, his network in Canada dismantled. Because, for the first time in a month, they were actually safe. The news had called it a major breakthrough in organized crime operations. Benoit had been promoted. Victor's arrest had exposed smuggling routes, money laundering operations, connections spanning 3 countries. Rebecca had watched it all on television from this same kitchen, feeling disconnected from the headlines that had nearly destroyed her life. She hadn't seen Ludwig since the night of the confrontation. The paramedics had taken him to Hôpital de l'Enfant Jesus with 3 gunshot wounds and severe lacerations. Benoit told her he'd survived surgery, recovered in police custody for 72 hours, then disappeared the moment they released him. No forwarding address. No phone call. No goodbye. Rebecca told herself that was better. Cleaner. Ludwig belonged to a world she didn't want Jessie growing up in. His absence was a gift, really. A chance to rebuild their normal life. But at night, when Jessie slept and the apartment was quiet, Rebecca wondered where he'd gone. If his wounds had healed. If someone else was hunting him now. She wondered if he thought about them at all. After breakfast, they took the bus to Old Quebec. Jessie pressed her face against the window, watching the St. Lawrence River shimmer in the December sunlight. The city looked different now, not dangerous, just old and beautiful and indifferent to the violence that had unfolded in its streets. They walked through the Terrasse Dufferin, past artists selling paintings and musicians playing for tourists. Jessie ran ahead, laughing, chasing pigeons near the Chateau Frontenac's grand facade. For a moment, Rebecca could almost pretend the last month had been a nightmare. Could almost believe they were just another mother and daughter enjoying a winter afternoon. Then she felt it. The weight of being watched. Rebecca turned slowly, scanning the crowd. Tourists. Locals. Street performers. No one suspicious. No one dangerous. But the feeling persisted. She found him near the edge of the terrace, leaning against the railing overlooking the lower town. Ludwig. Different now, beard trimmed, wearing civilian clothes, a wool coat that made him look almost respectable. But the scars were still visible on his hands. The ice-blue eyes still carried that weight. He saw her looking. Nodded once. Didn't approach. Rebecca's heart hammered. She should turn away. Should take Jessie and leave. Should protect the fragile normalcy they'd rebuilt. Instead, she walked toward him. You disappeared, she said when she was close enough to speak quietly. I had to. His voice was rougher than she remembered, still healing from smoke and violence. There are still people who want me dead. Just fewer of them now. Where did you go? Montreal. Then Ottawa. Spent some time figuring out if I still had enemies in Canada. He looked at her, really looked at her. Turns out most of them decided I wasn't worth the trouble. Victor's arrest scared people. Made them realize the Brotva's reach wasn't as long as they thought. So you're free. As free as someone like me gets. He paused. How's Jessie? Better. She still asks about you sometimes. Wants to know if you're okay. Something flickered across his face. Tell her I'm fine. Tell her I'm trying to be better. Are you? Ludwig looked out over the city, the grey stone buildings, the narrow streets, the river stretching toward the horizon. I'm trying to figure out what better even means. For 3 years, survival was the only thing that mattered. Now I'm not sure what to do with myself. Rebecca stood beside him, watching Jesse play in the distance. You could stay. Build something. Be someone other than what they made you. I thought about it. Even looked at apartments. He smiled sadly. But every time I think about settling down, I remember Rotterdam, Prague, all the places I tried to disappear, all the people who died because I brought danger to their doorstep. That wasn't your fault, wasn't it? He turned to face her. Rebecca, you nearly died because I showed up in your life. Jesse nearly got taken because I let you save me. How is that not my fault? Because you didn't ask me to help. I chose to. And I'd choose it again. She meant it. Despite everything, despite the fear and violence and trauma, she'd still drag him out of that alley. Still give him a place to heal. You're not a monster, Ludwig. You're just a man who's had to do monstrous things to survive. He was quiet for a long time. The cafe owner in Montreal, the one who warned you, he said something similar. Called me a monster fighting monsters. Maybe that's all any of us are. People trying to be better than our worst moments. Ludwig reached into his pocket, pulled out an envelope. I have something for you. Money. Enough to cover everything. The apartment damage, lost wages, trauma counseling for Jesse. Whatever you need. Rebecca took it but didn't open it. I don't want your money, Ludwig. I know. But take it anyway. Consider it payment for teaching me something I'd forgotten. What's that? That compassion isn't weakness. That helping someone doesn't make you a victim, it makes you human. He smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. You saved my life twice, Rebecca. Once in that alley, and once at Gare du Palais when you stopped me from killing Victor. I won't forget either. Jesse called out from across the terrace. Mama, come see. Rebecca waved back, then looked at Ludwig. Are you leaving again? Yeah. There's a job in Vancouver. Legitimate work, surprisingly. Security consulting for a shipping company that's had problems with organized crime. Benoit helped arrange it. He pushed off the railing. But I'll come back. Check in. Make sure you're okay. We'll be okay. We're survivors too. I know you are. He started to walk away, then paused. Rebecca? That thing you did, helping a stranger because it was the right thing, don't let this change that. The world needs more people like you, not fewer. The world needs fewer people like Victor. True. But the world also needs people who remember we're all human underneath. Even the monsters. He tipped an imaginary hat. Take care of that little girl. She's got a hell of a mother. Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd of tourists and locals. Just another face in the ancient city. Rebecca stood there for a moment, envelope heavy in her hand, watching the space where he'd been. Part of her wanted to call after him. To ask him to stay, to be part of their strange, broken, rebuilt life. But she didn't. Because Ludwig was right. He carried danger with him like a shadow, and Jesse had seen enough darkness for one lifetime. Jesse ran up, breathless and excited. Mama, can we get hot chocolate? Of course, baby. Rebecca took her daughter's hand, pocketed the envelope, and walked toward the cafe at the edge of the square. Behind them, the St. Lawrence River flowed on, ancient, indifferent, carrying secrets from the past toward an uncertain future. The city that had witnessed their war returned to its timeless rhythm, absorbing their story like it had absorbed 1,000 others before it. And in a cafe in Old Quebec, a single mother and her daughter drank hot chocolate and talked about princess castles and dragons, while somewhere far away, a man who'd been called a monster tried to figure out how to be something else. The world kept turning. And Rebecca Poirier, stronger now, scarred but unbroken, learned to live in it again. Hit subscribe if you believe good deeds should be recognized, only manipulators won't.